Well, hello, everybody. Well, welcome to another edition of Chad and Bob. And tonight we've got Albertson, B&B coffee manufacturer. So how you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. You guys?
Yeah, good.
Good.
Big open house last weekend, I see.
Yeah, that was a good turnout. A lot of people came out for that, and appreciate all the people that came out and seen the new shop, and it went really well.
Good. So you're excited to get to work out of that new shop, are you?
Yeah, it'll be nice once we get the flow of everything back. We got some new equipment, some new machines that we're using and stuff, and once we get the flow of everything working, we're a little bit behind on some of our car builds, but we'll catch up and get through it. But yeah, looking forward to the future going forward. It's definitely been it's been working out really good.
Well, I see the pictures. It looks really nice.
Yeah. It doesn't look so methy around here anymore. But yeah, it does. It looks nice. Everybody did a really nice job, cleaned up. And I mean, it changes your perspective when you go to work in the morning. That's for sure.
Well, it definitely does. Yeah, it makes a big difference. So how's Chad today?
Oh, we're doing good. Another crazy build season Monday. So
yeah, we did one of those today too. It's like, yeah, it was definitely a Monday getting close to racing season.
Yeah, they're starting to come out of the woodwork and starting to get fired up here. A couple more weeks after Daytona 500 will be wide open.
Yep. Craziness.
It does. Total craziness. Total craziness. Well, Fred chimed in and said, "Hi, guys. How's Fred? How's it out there in California?" Fred was there. I don't know if you know Fred, but he was there racing his modified and stock car too.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I know Fred. Yep, Fred Rowson.
Yep.
He did some covert operations out there in Arizona when we were out there. Can't talk about it, but he knows what he did.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, and Steve and Jerry are watching, so that's cool. We've got quite a few people watching, so we're ready for questions. Like I said, we got Mr. Burger here, B&B Chad, man. So any of your stock car guys have some of the questions that we haven't been able to ask in the last couple of weeks.
Bob, I wonder if you changed your vinyl.
Well,
maybe it's your. Did we adjust something at the class? Is that the same computer?
No, this is the same computer.
I don't know why it's so echoey.
Mine I can barely hear on, but I think half that's my hearing anyway. So,
well, let me sign off and sign back in. See if that changes. I don't know what. Well, hang on. Let me get the volume here.
What wavelength you're on? Mine's bad too. I think it echoes through somebody's computer. One of us, and then it feeds back through or something.
Yeah, because
maybe it's
you guys sound perfect, just quiet.
How about now? That's still echoey.
I don't know. Mine seems like it's echoing too. Well, everybody, you'll have to log back in. Turn this out and come right back. So I'll be right back.
Log out, log in.
Might as well.
Starting over.
Now we're live.
Now we're live again. So hopefully it's a little bit better. I don't think it is. I don't know what the question or what the issue is. Um, if we've got any of you super technical computer guys that can tell me what is wrong with this thing tonight, I don't know what the heck it's coming from. But anyway,
It's really good when Paul talks, so just let him talk.
yeah, that sounds good to me. We'll just plan on doing that. We'll just let you talk. But anyway, like I said, a lot of the comments or questions we had last week or 2 weeks ago was front ride heights and body stock. And,
Yep. And that was, and then, like I said, we were just talking when we were off air. A lot of that's just, being able to. It takes a lot of time to balance that out sometimes, to get your right ride heights, because you're allowed to cut the spring in the front, but you're not in the back. But you can take a quarter coil. Sometimes you're just taking, you kind of measure around the spring and then kind of measure back whatever you lose a quarter inch to whatever it is, quarter coil or less than a quarter coil, and you just kind of mess around with it. It could take some time. There's no doubt about it, but.
And Braden was telling me, because like the hobby stock guy who had the question last week was his deal was he was too low, and Braden was telling me we've got 11 springs now that people are going to instead of the 9.5.
Yeah, AFCO's the only one I know of. I think Speedway also has with a true coil. They got an 11-inch spring, and then that's usually tall enough to. Yeah, it's tall enough to be wherever you need to be.
Yeah, hypercoil does too.
Yep.
Well, anyway, whoever had that sport mod question, if you want to re-enter it in there, we'll try to answer that question. Like I said, I apologize. I thought this would work, but it's not working. So definitely some interference someplace.
Do you guys got a lot of people signed up for that stock car class coming up in a couple of weeks, or you still got some?
We still got some room.
Filling up?
Yeah, we got some room. We had a few people sign up over the weekend.
Good deal.
But we definitely got room. It'll be 3 weeks from the last weekend. So that'll be good. We got you and Mike Nichols, and Ben Baker, and of course Bob will be there to talk about shocks and stuff, and Troy will be there. So we got
Heck yeah.
some groups last year actually.
Yep, I got to spend a few hours with Troy on Saturday night. That was a pretty good time.
Troy usually has a pretty good time.
Yeah. He was the last one out of the facility too.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
Yep.
Yeah. Troy does a good job.
Yeah, he does. He's a good guy.
We got anybody watching, Bob?
Well, we've got 7.
And we got 3 people online.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. Looking forward to the stock car school. That's going to be our last school in Iowa, and then we go to Pennsylvania in the middle of March to do a show out there for Colt Racing, Joel at Colt Racing, and in conjunction with his open house. So that'll be fun. I haven't been to Pennsylvania for 2 years. Well, Dad was out there for a week and a half last year, but I haven't been. We did a school out there in 2022, and we didn't go out there last year.
Yep. If anything, it's pretty over there on the East Coast. Yeah. Yep.
Definitely. It's a good time out there, no doubt about it. Larry Sanders removed the other 2 videos showing 9 minutes, and they will join. So what do you think he means?
Must have to shut the other one down.
I mean, I don't have anything else going on. I turned my phone off, so that's not interfering with anything.
Barrett thinks it's the speaker volume on somebody's.
Mine I got wicked up now because I couldn't hear, so I don't.
I've been playing with my volume. It doesn't seem to change anything.
Here's cause the heat of echo, whatever you just did, Chad. My speaker volume is 44%. Anyway, Donnie's, when Paul talks, it doesn't echo. Yep, I can get that.
Yeah. Well,
then we'll just let Paul talk. Go ahead and start answering those
I'll run out.
questions.
I wish I was like Mike Albertson. That way, you never run out of being able things to say. I don't know if you guys know that guy, Wahoo, but he could definitely talk for
Who
an hour.
doesn't know Wahoo?
Yeah.
He's the one that uses all those F words when they're interviewing.
Exactly. Yeah, they should have a 5-second delay when he talks.
Well, I would go,
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, is that Morris code or is he trying to tell us something?
On a left rear 100-pound spring when compressed 3 inches, it seems as it would be lower on the left rear than on the right rear, Northern Sport Mod.
Yeah, so the rear spring table is where the tip of the screw jack is.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
He gone. So that would be measured from the ground to the screw jack. So the spring height and the drop in the cup is all comes into play. So when you have a soft left rear like that, you got to manipulate your cups and your spring heights to get the right side lower than the left rear. That's why we made 3 new drop cups to try and make that easier to do.
Yeah, Dustin, I know we're echoing bad, and I wish I knew what to do about that. Russ says, is the Bluetooth on? You guys from Flo had that problem on the drive home a couple nights ago. Yeah, I don't have Bluetooth. I don't have any Bluetooth turned on my computer.
I just turned mine off.
I just turned mine off.
Talk, Bob.
Okay. Is that any better? Seems like it still echoes a little bit.
You got your volume all the way up, Paul?
What's that?
Is your volume all the way up?
Yeah, I got mine volume smoked because if I turn it down, I can't hear nothing. I can't hear nothing when it turned all the way up. How about now?
Yeah.
Is that any better?
That was better.
Yeah, that seems to be better.
Did you turn it down?
I did turn it down, yeah.
Keep going.
That's all. That's all. Did it get better?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, no.
Anyway, the spring table measure on the left rear, in a dynamic setting, when you do compress that left rear spring, it definitely compresses it below the spring table. But the thing that in dynamic, that spring is always up higher. So in dynamic, the spring table is definitely, when you're on the racetrack, the spring table is definitely higher on the left side than on the right side.
Paul, do you have any earbuds?
I don't. I'm almost wondering if I don't get. It'd take me a while, but I'd have to get a different phone.
Or just, yeah.
Is it better there?
Well, it's only when we talk.
Yeah, we don't have.
Yeah, when I turn my volume off, then I can't hear you.
Well, it's gone then, so it's your volume is the problem.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it gone now?
Yeah.
Okay. I can
It's
hear
not
you guys
bad.
barely, but.
So is that better on my end too? No, I'm still
No.
Son of a.
How about your computer? Did you have this when you were on your computer?
I don't know.
You were,
You want me to go back to that?
well,
Oh,
you were
jet
fuzzy, but
laggy-ish.
you don't echo.
Let me see.
Try that once. Okay. Where were we? ...2008 Harris IMCA mod. You got that?
It's very hard
Joseph?
to hear you guys. Someone has their speaker volume too high. When Paul talks, it doesn't echo. Bob and Chad echo bad. Uh, 2008 Harris IMCA modified. Now I've got my speaker volume turned way down. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, barely. But that's because I got my speaker volume turned way down.
Yeah, it's not you and me. It's clearly his setup. How are you now?
Well, Paul's back.
That sounds better, maybe?
Anyway,
I'm a little laggy.
set up as a B mod for Wasota, looking to change rear ends due to leaking. Would it be beneficial to go with VHE Ford 9-inch with the Harris brackets on it? Well, I mean, definitely it's kind of up to you on who, of course, you want to buy the rear end from. I mean, our stuff we feels pretty good. I'm not always the greatest salesman. I don't want to say our stuff is better than anybody else's, but it's a very good product, and we got pretty good service, and we've got rear ends on hand. So if that has anything to do with it, that should help you. I would think with a newer end, it shouldn't leak. I don't know what your issue with an older end is, but okay. Definitely an echo still from the fellow in the middle. That was Paul.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Leslie, yeah, Paul has a reverb. Just added where's brake floater. That was one thing that we didn't talk about at the school was the brake floater because that was mentioned on my sheet.
We talked about the brake floater in the morning before you were there.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he just added the brake floater. What angle should I start with on the rod, and where should the caliper be located? Well, it doesn't really matter where the caliper is located, except for bleeding it. It definitely needs to be straight up and down to bleed well. But as far as functionality, it's not going to make any difference. Angle-wise, I would say statically in that 25-degree neighborhood is pretty good. I mean, that seems to be. We usually try to get it so it's in the same angle as the left rear top bar, the 4-link bar, and that seems to work pretty good. John says no better, still echoing. Was worth a shot, though. Brian,
comments are all.
after I moved my left rear chain mount in by the bell, my car started to dump really hard on the right rear and carry the left front. I reset my bar angles and my rear steer measurement, and my rear end side to side is good. Is there something you guys have experienced? Any suggestions?
Stiffen the right rear spring. That's one thing. That's one thing on that kit. Am I lagging or not?
No, you're good.
You're fine.
Okay. That's one thing I know, like, is one thing I always try to tell a lot of our customers, just anything with setup, is like, you always want to do what the car's telling you. Like, I mean, if it's dumping on the right rear, there's nothing wrong with stiffening the spring. I mean, there's no set, guideline to say that, some guys run a 225, but that could be lead placement. That could be all kinds of reasons why his car isn't getting on the right rear. But if your car is getting on the right rear and you can't figure it out, stiffen the spring up. I mean, if it's dumping.
Well, I would think that would be something to consider, because evidently with it being out by the where your chain was before you moved it, evidently it was just outboard enough that it was keeping the car from rolling over and restricting it too much, where you might actually need to go, when you move it inboard, you might actually have to go to less chain, not as much drop as what you did on outboard. I mean, because in theory, when you move it in, it's going to move more.
Yeah, if you just kept the chain length the same and slid it inboard, it would definitely move a lot more. So you need to measure your overall hike off something other than your chain when you're relocating it. So whether it's the frame rail to the axle tube or even the tire to the body, some quick reference so you know that you're moving the same amount.
Yeah, I would say that's that's what I'd recommend. I'd move the chain back and then hike it up and measure my ride height, like Chad just said, between the frame and the axle tube, and then move it in, and then do the hike and see what it did. Because I'll bet you'll find that the chain, it moves quite a bit more. Zach said if you're streaming live on a computer and your phone is right next to it with a live as well, it might cause the echo. Well, I know I took my phone back.
I don't have that.
Yeah, it was just his phone. We're good now.
Brayden
We can just
said
roll.
I'm supposed to get you some earplugs, Paul.
Yeah. Next time I'll use my other computer with the camera on it. So I wrote the clip on camera.
Kyle, 17 BMB. Adjustable shock mounts on the rear. Is the left rear spring limited by the shock? And is the right rear, should I adjust like an inch past ride height? Did you get that one, Paul?
Kind of, not really. You do use your left rear. Your shock does limit your hike on the left rear. So I mean, you always, like IMCA rule is 4.5 inches of drop that you have to have come out of there. So you always want to start there. That's a starting point we always use. Sometimes as the track slicks off, we'll shorten that a little bit. Some guys will raise it to get more rear steer, but then that also causes your car to be free. The higher the car hikes up, the more you rear steer and the more freer the car is through the middle of the corner. So when it dries out, I like to shorten that so then the car doesn't hike up as much. But then sometimes when you do that, you got to stiffen your right rear spring a little bit to catch the car, because it'll transfer the weight over to the right rear, as you hike. So it's just kind of a balancing thing that you got to play with. But once again, it's just a starting point, and then you just kind of got to play from there. But the left rear does control the hike on the left, on the car. So you do got to pay attention to that. It's a good adjusting tool for what the car is doing.
Mason wants to know what's a good amount of dynamic roll steer on a USRA stock car.
That's
I was reading that. Like, what is he saying? Like roll steer? Is he talking like the as the car rolls over, how much left rear forward that you're getting? That's what he's looking for?
Yep.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. Once again, it's, the more the left rear goes forward, the freer the car is on the gas. So I mean, it's, I honestly, I don't even have a measurement for that, like, because we usually just measure the car at static, and then I think we got like 3 inches somewhere in there of where it rolls forward by dynamics. So I don't have a set measurement off our cars for that, but I can figure that out.
Justin wants to know, with the new ride height in the IMCA stock cars, will shocks need updated to account for changing and possibly spring differences? I don't see where it's going to make any difference on the shock valving. Do you believe that it will, Paul?
Say that. Where was that one again? Is that the
Justin, the one right? It says, with the new ride height in the IMCA stock car, will shocks need to be updated to account for the change and possible spring differences?
I think there's going to be a little bit of messing around with the left rear. I mean, I don't think a guy's going to have to go crazy on changing shocks or anything, but there's definitely going to be something learned on the left rear when we, as a guy moves forward, because with the ride height, if guys are running 175s or 150s, and then you put some rounds in the left rear to get more drive or more dig out of the car, you're not going to be able to do that now. So you're going to have to go to a softer spring. So, I mean, softer spring means freer race car on entry. So a guy's definitely going to have to, change gas pressure, your compression or something on the left rear. But nothing, it's just too early yet to figure exactly what you need. But
yeah, we should invite Jerry Van Sickle to be on with us. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Whoa, doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy wants to know if you got some of that Kinglet, Chad.
I forgot all about it. I was supposed to stop on the way home at the Casey's in Story City, and I drove by and forgot all about it. And I forgot the beef jerky in Bobby's fridge too that Jerry brought for us. So really screwed up there.
What's Kringle? I've never even heard that.
Oh,
it's amazing, whatever it is.
Yeah,
oh, really?
It's good stuff. It's kind of a cake type thing. I don't know. I can't really explain it, but it falls into that category of like some sort of a cake, I think. She would be the one to know, so she can kind of tell us what the heck it really is. I just know it's pretty good. Northern Sport Mod, what would be a great starting spot on the Panhard bar on the housing? Top to bottom. Everything sounds good now, guys. Well, what I've always recommended is running. I measure where I set my Panhard bar is 3.5 inches below the axle housing for a tacky racetrack and 4 inches below the housing for a slick racetrack. And then I always set my Panhard bar on the frame 1.5 inches above, or 1 inch above the housing. So that way you end up with about a 5 to 6 inch spread between the Panhard bar as far as angle goes. What's the purpose of the 1 inch Weir's drop cup on the right rear?
So again, the spring table is really what we're trying to work on there. So we make a bunch of different cups to adjust that spring table in the rear. So when we have a couple different drops there where we adjust where the screw jack tip is in the cup, And that, along with the spring height, is how you gauge your spring table from the ground to that measurement. So we make a bunch of different drop cups trying to get that right side spring table lower than the left side so the cars actually roll over onto the right rear. So once your car's all scaled and ready to go, then you go behind it and you measure from the ground up to them screw jack tips, and that'll tell you, if the left side's lower than the right side, you need to work on it. If the right side's lower than the left side, you're pretty good.
Matt wants to know, what could we expect from a left rear 5/8 shaft AFCO monotube to a 1/2-inch monotube? The biggest thing you're going to tell is the rod pressure is just a little different. It's not going to be as stiff by hand, so to speak. The valving and everything is still going to be the same if it's valved the same. But other than that, that's really the only difference is, the actual rod force that that shaft. The smaller shaft has less rod force.
Tell Robert thanks. It's a Danish cake. That's what I figured. It must have been a pastry.
Yeah.
Right.
I used to be a connoisseur of all this stuff. I'm super fat. Good times.
Yeah, Braden chimed in and said less rod force and less gas gain. Robert said it's a Danish cake. Well, I knew it was some kind of a cake, but it's a Danish cake. Amy said she'll bring some to New York City. To New York, it's like a soft sugar Norwegian cake. Awesome.
She said she's going to bring some to the stock car class in 2 weeks.
Okay.
That sounds like a good deal. Sucks you're not going to be there, Chad.
Yeah. They're trying to schedule another show, so 4 weeks in a row there in March. It's going to be like old school Chad Weirs every weekend.
Yeah.
Billy's got a 2017 B&B. Both rear springs are 16-inch. Wanted to run shorter right rear spring to get more roll out of the car. Didn't like it and switched back. Should we still be running a 16-inch right rear or go to a different route? What's your opinion on that, Chad? I mean, Paul?
Go ahead, Paul.
My opinion, I think I truly believe, we can talk spring table. There are guys that are running 16 right rears and they're really fast. I mean, the more coils in a spring, the more it's going to push back on the car. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to 16 inches. I know one guy that wins a lot of races and national titles, and he runs 16-inch right rear spring. So, once again, everything in a race car is, planned. It's just transfer and weight. How you're going to transfer it. I mean, so really, what it comes down to is lead placement, shock usage, spray. Where you have your bar angle and all that stuff. So I mean, there are guys that are successful in winning races with 16-inch springs, and I'm not opposed to it because I think with a taller spring, it might not get on the right rear as easy as a 13, but then you just do something to the car to make it get there easier and quicker. But you're going to have all that coil and that spring to push back to help you get forward drive. So.
Yeah, part of it too is when you go from let's just say you had a 225 16-inch tall, and you put a 13-inch 225 in there. So you lower the spring table to get the mechanical roll. You need to increase rate of the spring to suffice that roll and drive the tire into the track. Otherwise, you're just going to roll over and get loose because it can't hold that motion. So it's a balancing act. When you're playing with the spring table, you're also trying to get the right spring rate to accommodate that spring table.
Yeah, it seems like anytime you go to a shorter spring, you actually have to go stiffer.
Yeah.
Chris wants to, Paul, what's your thoughts on the new stock car frame? Did you get to be involved in this, or have you not been keeping track of it?
No, I actually, I don't know how much I can talk. I mean, I guess I can talk a lot about it, but Brett actually, Root kind of had me involved in it as they were going through, when they're designing it, whatever. And we talked quite a bit about it. And then I got to go down to Speedway to see it. the final product and everything. And I mean, I think it's for the sport, it's a necessity. We have to have that frame. I'm not a fan of the fabricated frame, nor is he, but that's his choice. I didn't have anything to do with any of that. But my opinion on like the fabricated frame, though, like the one they have out, I think those are dangerous. Anytime you got a straight clip car, we learned that back in the 90s and when we were killing modified drivers, all the time because it's a bad deal. But anyway, I mean, that frame, it's going to be a good deal. There'll probably be a little bit of learning curve as far as building it and then process of building it and all that, but it's pretty idiot proof and it's going to be pretty tough to cheat it up. So, because they got locating holes all over, and if those locating holes don't line up, you're in trouble. So, it was definitely a well thought out deal, and I truly believe it was a necessity for our sport to keep growing because otherwise, I don't know, where would the stock car, hobby car class be if we're running fabricated frames? I mean, it wouldn't be a good thing. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good deal what IMCA did there. So, can't wait to start building them actually.
Jeremy, what relationship between spring rate and 0 point on the right front? If I go to a softer spring, do I want to pair it with a shock with more or less 0 point? If you go softer on spring, I would think you would want to go with less 0 point because the softer the spring is not going to resist the movement and it's not going to want to come back as fast as a stiffer spring will. So in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but in my opinion, I would think you would want to run less 0 point so that the car can automatically get back on the left rear because you're not going to have the spring to drive it back over there.
You skipped over Nick there, but he was talking about also spring table on a 4-bar car. So the difference between a coilover car and a spring separate is on a coilover car like a modified, it's from the ground to where that coilover hooks to the chassis. So if you have screw jacks, you can manipulate that real easy. If you don't, and your shock mounts are welded to the car, then you got to do the bolt-in shock drops to change that height to get the spring table to go. And on a coilover suspension, it doesn't matter what the height of the spring is. You can run it upside down, right side up. It only knows where it's hooked to that device.
Mason wants to know Jeremy, what is the relationship? No,
You did, Jeremy.
Mason, front load numbers for an open motor modified, 500 left front, 450 right front. Boy, Mason, I wouldn't be able to tell you the load numbers because each car is different, and it all depends on where you measure it at. If you measure them like at 3 inches of movement, or if you measure it at 3.5 or whatever the movement is, I could just stab in the dark as a number, but that would be false information from my part to you. So I can't really give you an exact because like they're all different. Even chassis builder to chassis builder, they vary a little bit. I mean, chassis.
I'm sorry, I read Angelo's response on there. That was pretty funny. Springs don't matter if you have an open motor. You're just out there to have fun.
Amen.
I ran race modifieds last summer, and I had an open motor, and it was heat races were a blast. And you really whoop some ass, but come feature time, you might as well just sit in the pits.
Nick wants to know what the advantage of running a tight helix spring is. What's your opinion on that, Paul?
That goes back to the 16-inch spring. The more coils you have in that spring, the more that spring's going to push back. So I truly believe that's why everybody likes to run. I actually run one in my car too. It pushes back harder. So, it creates that left to right relationship. If the right rear is pushing or left rear is pushing over on the right rear and that right rear is pushing back, you're creating forward drive. So yeah, I'm not. I mean, and once again, you can get a regular coil, spring to do that as well. But the helix, the tie helix spring definitely seems to work really good.
Okay, we've got some room for some time for some more questions. In fact, we got plenty of time here. We have 10 minutes.
I was going to ask you, Chad, I should have texted you today, but you know, the left rear, that drop cup, you guys make one that's like half that length?
Yeah, you're talking like a screw jack style cup.
The left rear for like stock, like the ones we always buy, that left rear drop cup, the long one.
Yep. So we got the raised one now that's up right at the top of the cup, our normal one, and then one below that. So we got 3 different options there now for the rear cups.
Okay.
So we went basically an inch above and below.
Robert
All
wants
right.
to know if we run the Torrington bearing in the right rear, as long as the right rear doesn't come off the spring, the Torrington bearing will work fine in the right rear. But you can't let it come off the spring, because if it collapses and jumps down on top of that bearing in a free height, it'll snap that bearing. Justin says tight helix on the right rear only. Yes.
Yep. I seen some hobby guys running them. I don't know how that worked out, but I seen some hobby guys running them on both rear springs, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That's one thing too, like back on Chris Adams and that comment on the frame. I know too that with that frame deal, they haven't like definitively said what the price is, but I've kind of got a roundabout where they're going to be with it. I know a lot of people are concerned about the prices of chassis going way up because of it, but it should only increase the cost of the car or the chassis about $500, possibly $1,000. But I think the honest car builders out there aren't gonna. The time that we're gonna get saved for not having to handle frames and use frames and getting frames, it's gonna come out the wash. So, once again, it's great. It's awesome we got that coming.
John wants to know the effect of the pull bar angle. Well, of course, the more angle, it's going to get more traction, but it won't last as long. Less angle won't be as quick a traction. You'll still get good traction, but it'll traction up down the straightaway longer. So it's just like, any of your arms that you put angle in. The more angle we put in it, the quicker it responds, but the quicker it goes away. And the less angle, maybe it doesn't respond quite as quickly, but responds longer. So that's kind of the effect of pull bar angle. Frank wants to know, what bushings do you recommend for the rear control arms on a stock car?
We run stock type rubber bushings. That's all we put in all of our cars. I know there's other manufacturers out there that sell other ones, whatever. But I mean, if you could, we've been doing this for 30 years, and if you can show me that bushing shows up on a stopwatch, I'll buy into that program. But I still to this day haven't seen a $500 set of rubber bushings show up on a stopwatch, so I'm not buying into it. If it does, I'll definitely sell them. But so we just stick with rubber bushings. Your bar angle, once again, your bar angle in the rear suspension in the stock car, angles everything, lead placement, just the bounce of the car. That's so, and the problem is you get too soft. Always remember your top control arm is what your panhard bar. That's what stops the car from going side to side. So don't ever put anything soft up there. If anything, stock rubber or stick or urethane or something like that. And if you wanted to try soft ones in the bottom, you can put them in the bottom, and then whatever. But yeah, I just recommend all around save a guy a ton of money just by putting rubber ones in.
Colton, IMCA Sport Mod, is it best to run the panhard bar on the rear end as close as you can to the center of the housing or towards the right rear? I would prefer the closer you can run it to the center of the housing, because the panhard bar, wherever it's located on the rear end, whichever tire it's closest to, it's going to have more impact on that tire. So in my opinion, if you can run it as close as you can to the center line, you'd be better off. And that's kind of why we build that bracket that we do using the Weir's bracket, and then we build our own bracket to that to just weld right onto the rear end. And it welds right basically straight behind the pinion. So it's pretty much in line with the center of the rear end as close as we can get it. On a street stock, is drive angle in the rear arms more important or ride height?
They're both important. I mean, I know like on our cars we have a measurement from our rear end housing to a ride height hole in the frame, and like on our cars at that ride height, I mean, if we're not at that ride height, like if we're too low, then the car is junk, and if you're too high, then the car is going to resist roll. So I mean, you always want your ride heights. You always want to have them where they're supposed to be, and then your bar angle, or in the left rear, plays a huge role in how much drive you have in that left rear, and the right rear angle also plays a role in how much the car will roll over and or how much drive you put in that tire. So yeah, it's a huge deal. Like and once again, it's a balancing act, but bar angle and ride heights are very important.
Jeff wants to know, AMOD right rear bottom shock bolt crashes lower bar, rear's cage spacers, and cage spacing seems to be correct. Any options?
Well, the easiest fix is to just flip the shock over and run bulb down. If you're a Schrader valve, then you probably want to run a little piece of aluminum, hose clamp to the body of the shock so you don't hit that Schrader valve. Otherwise, our WM435 cup, which is a raised cup, will raise that spring up on the shock and move that spring away from that 4-bar. So a couple different options there to get that to keep hitting on that bar.
On the bushings, Frank says the good Napa ones work really great. Justin Sport Mod, if your panhard bar is too low on the rear end, will that prevent the car from getting on the right rear? No, actually, it will probably try to make the right rear. It'll want to get on the right rear even harder. And what will actually happen is sometimes it gets on the right rear so hard that it'll shear traction because it's loading the right rear so hard that it can shear traction and make it feel like it's looser, but it's actually loading the right. The more angle you have in the panhard bar, or the lower it is, I should say, on the rear end, the more it's going to get on the right rear. John, is higher or lower on the pull bar on the rear end or frame? Is higher or lower on the pull bar on rear end and frame? We've tried all kinds of different measurements on that stuff, and we still end up with about 11 inches above the center of the axle housing on the rear end, and then 15 degrees of angle on the pull bar itself. So whatever that comes out to be, 15 to 18 degrees is where we usually run our pull bar. What does adding lead to the left rear axle tube do? Well, if it was legal, and it's not legal in IMCA, but if it's legal wherever you go, it definitely is going to load that tire. I mean, putting weight on that tire is definitely going to load that tire. Now, if you get on a rough racetrack, you're going to have a handful because it's the unsprung weight part's going to be a handful to drive in a rough racetrack.
Isn't that funny how 30 years ago in the Steve Smith book they told us not to do that?
Well, and I still believe it's not the thing. And I still believe it's not the thing to do.
No, I agree.
But I mean, if we could get someplace that wasn't sheep's-footed and smooth as glass, I'd buy into it. But I have yet to see one of them racetracks for quite some time, because even you'll look out at a racetrack that's been sheep's-footed and it looks like it's smooth, but it's actually almost rougher than a rough racetrack.
Yeah.
Because your tires chattered across those holes. Ryan says, do you guys rebuild Fox shocks? Ryan, I'm not super sure about that one. I don't think we do. I know we used to, but I actually don't think we do anymore. I have not seen any Fox shocks in the shop there for quite some time. Your best would be to give the shop a call tomorrow and talk to either Braden or Bobby about that. And maybe if Braden's on here, he can respond if we do them or not. Because I hate to sound stupid, but I'm not really sure. I know we do AFCO, Penske, and Integra. I know we do those three for sure. Well, Paul, you got any more comments? Any speed tips you want to share with us?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't need. Yeah, I'm a 2A guy. Like I don't. It's hard to pull stuff out of my head when I ad libbing. No, but I don't know. It's get some of these guys to sign up for that stock car class, and we can teach them all kinds of stuff.
Well,
but what's that?
Go ahead.
Well, I just like with the whole racing thing. A lot of this stuff is just balance and do what your car is doing. Don't overthink the game. Common sense goes a long ways. Biggest thing I see in this sport is guys not paying attention to their car, and then they're looking for everybody else to give them the answer, and they got the answer. You just gotta, listen to them. Rear weight, left side weight, left rear drive, just those basic things, and that'll make a guy definitely go faster if you just pay attention to what your car's doing.
Well, and that's the thing that with these classes, I'm not trying to brag us up on those, but there's so much information in 2 days of class that it'll change your whole program. I mean,
it does. I get guys that ask me all the time because I think this will be my 5th year I've come down for that stock car class, and I was always one of them guys that was like, oh, what do you need to go? I mean, every year I've gone, you always learn something. Like, whether you pull something out of your brain that you learned last year or just something from somebody that you're talking or, whatever. But it just always seems like you learn something every time you go there.
Yeah, you bet. Question, Kevin's got the question, is the class sold out? No, it's not actually sold out yet. I think there's a few more spots left. Info on straight stock class, go to racetechinfo.com, and that will give you all the information about that class that you need to. Chad says it a lot. Stay in your own notebook. Once again, I can't stress that enough. Stay in your own notebook, and for one, it doesn't.
So true.
Because it works on one car and one driver, doesn't necessarily work on the other.
Yep, and that's kind of that goes back to, like, I don't want to like diss on load sticks or any like load numbers and all that stuff, but like when that guy earlier was asking about specific load numbers, it's like you can give specific load numbers, but it's kind of like it isn't going to work for everybody. Because I mean we mess around that in the stock cars, and it's like, well, one, because one driver is going to go in the corner harder than the next, and one guy is going to, if you go in the corner at 55 miles an hour, the car is going to do one thing. If you go in at 110, it's going to do another thing. So if you're not going in the corner at 110, don't cry about your race car.
Matt says, if you can go to the class, I'd highly recommend doing it and investing in your program. Sam, left side weight recommendations. What do you normally recommend, Paul, for a stock car?
Say that left side weight. It all depends. Dry slick, you want to be down 51, 5, 52, 5-ish. If there's, I'm sorry, dry slick, I said it wrong. I didn't say it wrong, but dry slick, usually, if you go 51, 52, more left side weight's free forward drive. So the more left side weight you can get in the car without being too free on entry, that's where you want to be. But usually in the slick, guys have a tough time getting on the right rear, so they're usually like right around 51 and a half, 52. But if you get your car, what's that?
Is that with or without driver?
That's usually with the driver.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. But if you can get your left side, you can get it at 54 and a half, and you're not skating in, it should be pretty good.
Steve, earlier you said 3.5 tack and 4 inches slick on a panhard bar rear end of a sport mod. Is that from the center of the axle tube, or is that from the bottom of the axle tube? Actually, that would be from the center of the axle tube. And Justin wants to know, in fact, Justin's got our last question. Justin, how soft of right front springs are you seeing on stock cars?
All everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. Like there's no definitive. I like with the new ride height rule. Last year, a lot of people were transgressing when they had the when you run the lower ride height. A lot of guys are on 1,300 pound springs, running it just pinned on the nose. And then now with that ride height rule of 7 inches, guys are going back to the softer right front spring. But then there's a whole bunch of Pandora's box in that. So, I mean, there's not a definitive answer. We're going to start out at like 850, 900 is where we're starting out now. But I mean, there are guys running 450s in the right front, and then you play coil bind. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. But there's just everybody's on everything. I myself would start out at a 900, 850, and maybe even a 750, and then leave it at that.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate all the questions tonight, and appreciate you, Paul, coming on and giving us your wisdom on the stock car end of things. And
absolutely, I can't believe Matt Heidelball's still walking. He's still able to. After Saturday night, I can't believe he's able to spell.
Well, those guys have a good time. I mean,
yeah, they do. Yeah, they're not afraid of.
They're young enough that they can endure that.
Yeah.
Their recovery time is still somewhat short.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks, which would be February 19th.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, if you want me on here anytime soon, just give me a couple weeks heads up so I can save up so I can buy a new camera for my computer.
Okay.
I got to make a payment to Chad Weirs here, so I'm gonna have to save up for that.
10-4. Good to see you, Burger.
Okay.
Yeah, good to see you,
Paul.
guys.
See you, Chad.
All right. Yep. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.